Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. Happy New Year! It's 2023. I hope you all are doing extremely well. I'm going to move this camera just a little bit closer. Hopefully, that way you can hear me just a little bit better. So, it's that time of year, the beginning of the year, New Year's resolutions, and all of these sorts of things. So, I have a couple of personal things I'm working on myself. So far, I'm doing pretty good. I've noticed some positive outcomes from it, so I'm trying to make small changes in my life where it will help increase my personal power, you know, and not in the sense that when I say personal power, I mean the power to change my own reality and make changes where they need to be made. Not so much as a way to have power over others, but self-empowerment is very, very good. And if there's anything you can do, health-wise or whatever to help yourself, if there's been something that you've been waiting to do, now is the time to do it. I think it really is. And you'll be happy with yourself when you do fully go through with it. While I don't have anything in particular planned for this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about just a couple books. Mostly, I'm probably going to talk about this book right here. I've started reading this, The Land of the Gods, H.P. Blavatsky. I love this so far. Now, those of you who know about theosophy, who know about Madame Blavatsky, I've done a couple videos on her before, so I'm not really going to cover the basics per se of who she is. If you want to learn more about that, if you're not familiar with Blavatsky, I recommend that you go out and go back and check out my other videos first, the ones that I cover of the secret doctrine, because I actually have like a big, I think it's like 6 or 7 books, and when you stack them all together, it's really tall. I think maybe I showed them in those previous videos. So it's a lot of reading, and it's really deep reading, very esoteric and like scientific. Scientific in the sense that it's not like modern science where it only studies the external reality. It's penetrating into the deeper mysteries. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. We're going to probably read some excerpts from this book. Just because it's so awesome. So if you haven't started with H.P. Blavatsky yet, you're not sure, there are like edited versions of The Secret Doctrine. I have a paperback version somewhere. I think I still have it. And it's not much larger than this book. It's maybe about twice as thick as this book. And it's a very like edited version of The Secret Doctrine. It's just certain parts of The Secret Doctrine. But The Secret Doctrine, as I said before, it's actually like a big, like 6-7 volume, and the hardbacks, if you were to stack them on top of each other, it would be like this high off my desk. So, yeah, we're talking about a walloping, massive amount to read. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but I recommend this to begin with if you don't have any of her prior works. This just came out in 2022, so it's a new publication. I do also, in this video, I want to talk about something called the Eighth Sphere. I've heard it called by different names, such as the Abyss, in ceremonial magic, it's referred to as that. And I want to give a shout out to a YouTuber who I just came across. I highly recommend, I do this all the time on my YouTube channel, I recommend other YouTubers. I recommend that you go and check out their works, because they're going to expand upon topics which, in a way that I'm not going to be able to. I want to reiterate the fact that I'm not a master. I'm not a guru. Even as far as ceremonial magic goes, I still consider myself like a novice. Because I still, especially lately, I feel like I've actually kind of devolved in my practices a little bit. I'm not as powerful in my sense of perception as I once was. Years ago, I feel like I was actually at my apex of being of psychic ability. where I was able to really see more of the astral plane, and maybe even beyond the astral plane, because we don't want to get caught in the lower astral, which is what this eighth sphere is all about. We'll get into that a little bit. But the YouTuber that I want you to check out is Gigi Young. She spells her name Gigi and then Young. Young is spelled normally. Check her out. There are some very cool videos. She's done a newer one on like Atlantis and bloodlines and stuff, and that one's really cool. That was the first video I came across of hers. But she does like 3 different videos on the 8th sphere, and one of those videos is really long. It's like a 3-hour video, and she goes really in depth, and you can tell that she took the time to take notes. So if you want to learn more about that topic, we might be discussing it on this channel, you know, as I learn more about it. And that's the other thing. I'm always learning. I'm a student. I'm pretty much right where you guys are, probably. You know, lately I've just been doing like the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram, and the middle pillar. Those are primarily the 3 exercises that I've been working with. Because I'm one of those people, I don't like to go forward or progress anymore until I've mastered the basics. So I really want to get comfortable with being powerful in the LBRP and the LIRP by being able to actually envision and see the archangels, which I've been having a bit of difficulty with lately. All these notifications keep popping up on my phone. Sorry about that. But yeah, I want to basically get my personal powers back to where they're stronger before I go ahead and move on again with like the LVX and the lesser banishing ritual of the hexagram. Because when you start manifesting energies on that kind of a level, you're going to have problems containing that energy, and especially if you're not clairvoyant enough to really understand what it is you're working with and what you're doing. We don't want to work with the false astral light. We want to move beyond to, you know, actual source, the actual force that forms and permeates this world. All we see of the external reality, there's a deeper reality that exists behind it, and we're going to get into that a little bit with this book. So that's another topic I want to check out or cover in this video, and I recommend you go check out Gigi Young. A couple other Christmas presents I got. This was a Christmas present from my fiance, and she also got me this. I'm a nerd for Elden Ring. Got this big hardback player's guide, and it's really coming in handy because those of you who are Elden Ring fans, it actually won Game of the Year for 2022. It's a really cool game. There's lots of neat lore. You can really tell that these people like know some stuff about the occult. Same with the Elder Scrolls series. I mean, these people almost have to be like scholarly to be able to create these stories and stuff. They're very smart individuals. The people who write the stories and the scripts for these things. So I recommend you try to play Elden Ring. It's kind of a tough game to get into at first. It's going to make you angry at first, just like Dark Souls did with me. I got the original Dark Souls. I bought the remastered one for like $30 or something. I absolutely hated it. I did not like the game at all. Elden Ring's more open world and the graphics are better, and I think the development of the story and stuff, it just seems like way, way better in all aspects. So I recommend you go straight to Elden Ring. If you haven't played the Dark Souls games yet. If you have played the Dark Souls games and you've beaten them or done well in them, congratulations to you. You have more patience than I do. And then another book. This is quite a gem here. This is the 17, for those of you who are, into Freemasonry. This is the 1783 how do you pronounce this? Must be Franken manuscript. And this, I actually got from my mom. It's an awesome gift. It comes from the, you can actually get this on the Scottish Rite's Northern Masonic jurisdiction, there's a Northern and a Southern jurisdiction in Scottish Rite. And those two jurisdictions have actually like merged now. So that's really kind of cool. And you can get this book on their website, actually. So it's all approved, by the Scottish Rite for this to be printed. It's an old manuscript. And it's a lot of the old Scottish Rite rituals and stuff. And as you can see, here's like the old manuscript version on the left, and then the newer version is printed on the right, so you can see what's being said. This is quite a beauty, though. I've barely cracked into this book. As you can see, this thing's massive. It is quite large. So that one's gonna take a while. I have so many projects going on. I feel like there's so much to do in so little time. A couple books I'm working on. I want to get started on Archangel Uriel notes too, and that progress has been slow. So I promise that's coming. That's like the next thing I want to hit. I might be doing like a Morals and Dogma video before that comes about, just because I have so many notes already prepared for Morals and Dogma, and we've started that series. I think we're like 7, maybe on the 8th video for Morals and Dogma, and we're only in chapter 2, so I extensively cover that book. We're really hitting all the key parts and really, figuring out what is being said in that book. So I may even do one of those today if I feel up to it, after I'm done with this video. Wow. I plugged the laptop charger into the wall, but I did not plug the charger into the laptop, so I should probably go ahead and do that. There we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit. I guess before I get into the Land of the Gods book, I want to get into a little bit about this whole 8th sphere concept. So the 8th sphere, it's kind of synonymous with the abyss, is what this G.G. Young woman has to say. Kind of similar concepts. You'll find that in the occult world, in the esoteric world, there are lots of different terms for the same thing, depending on which tradition you follow. But this 8th sphere kind of works like the abyss, in that it's basically where all the accumulated like negative karma, like basically all the junk goes to. It's accumulated there. There's beasts in the abyss that you have to overcome, and it's always symbolized as the adept moving like above. I always imagine like this literal abyss, like it's this big dark pit, this big pit of darkness, and the adept literally has to, literally or symbolically, however you want to see it, move across this. And it's really the abyss of our own souls. It's all this accumulated negative karma and all this junk reality, what I would term junk reality. We don't, to really know the inner workings of the universe, is something that we kind of are striving to do on this channel. My powers of perception, like I said, I'm not a master, so I don't know exactly how all of this stuff works, but I'm always trying my best to get the best information I can, possible, to come up with a somewhat concise way to describe these concepts. But anyway, the 8th sphere is actually some kind of a conjunction. She shows, the G.G. Young woman, she shows some diagrams with, it's a combination of the moon, like the lower lunar sphere, so the lower aspect of the moon, because the moon has good aspects too, positive aspects. The moon, Mars, and Saturn, I believe it is, and it's like these 3 dots, and it's this ring. Let me see if maybe I can get a visual representation. Something else that was interesting too is she mentioned how Crowley, actually, one of his goals was to draw or summon forth, conjure all the demons of the abyss, and he wanted to prove his mastery, how much of an adept he was in this life, by summoning all the demons from the abyss and then overcoming them. And to try and do something like that is really kind of, unless you're really like a true Christ being or a being of light, to try and do what he did, it drove him mad in the end. I would never try to do such a thing until I knew that I was in an incarnation, where I had totally mastered myself, no ego left whatsoever, yet a super powerful being. And even then you would still be taking a gamble, so It's really only beings like Christ himself and such ascended masters that, that could really overcome that kind of a trial. And his Bolshevik house was next to, the Loch Ness. Is it called Lake Loch Ness? I believe it is, because they call it the Loch Ness Monster. But it's kind of funny that there's the lore of the Loch Ness Monster, and then he's summoning, these demons out of the abyss. So I think there's some correlation with that Bolshevik house where he used to live, being on that lake. And I think that was maybe even Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, lived in that house for a while. I think that's the house, the same house. And I think OTO initiates actually still face that direction when they do a lot of their ritual work and such. Okay. Let me see if I can find a picture of this 8th sphere. She has a good picture on hers, but I don't know if I can come across one or not on Google Images. No, when I type in 8th sphere, it's just bringing up a whole bunch of it's not the right. And this topic's a pretty occulted topic. It's something I've heard about kind of before, but I never really come into contact with somebody who had so much information about it before and could explain it so well. So that's why I recommend you go and check out her videos, because I'm just barely touching on the subject here. Okay, this is not exactly the picture I was looking for, but it is going to work. This is one of the pictures that she uses, or something similar to it, in her video. Can I make this picture bigger? Is that what that does? Google Lens. Gosh, sometimes technology is a blessing and a curse. I have a really hard time with technology sometimes. It's brought me a lot more anger sometimes in my life than it should, I feel like. I like user-friendly applications and things of that nature. I'm having trouble. Okay, this is big enough, I think, that you can see. Hopefully you can see that. And you've got all the 7 planets there, and then the 8th sphere is actually on like the outside there. And that's one depiction of the 8th sphere. So it's kind of like this hellish realm. It's considered like the lower astral realm. And yeah, it's just where all the nasty stuff like accumulates. And it's really the job of the adept to overcome this and transmute it and symbolically like move through it or move across it and come out the other side. And that's where real illumination comes from, is where you really have faced the dark night of the soul, and overcome this sort of trial, really. A lot of dark occultists will summon things from the abyss or the 8th sphere too. So there's a lot of people working with this plane of existence, but it's really like a false god or like a mechanical god. It's like a demiurge realm. And Gigi said that there's like a false Christ there, there's a false Buddha there, like all the different deities, there's like a negative polarity of that deity. So very interesting stuff. I'm trying to think if there's much that I can add to that I don't have any notes written or anything from her videos, because the next notes I'm really going to work on are Uriel notes. Archangel Uriel. But hopefully that gives you a good enough idea, like introduction on the topic, that you can kind of take that and run with it. Yeah, I don't know that there's anything else I really can add to that for now. There's some kind of being that exists in the astral realm too. I read in a Saint Germain book, there's nothing of the Christ in the astral realm. I've covered this in a prior video. See, and this is where like ceremonial magic starts to kind of like I start to wonder about the practices of ceremonial magic, you know, like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, because it's said to light up the astral and you're working with the astral plane. But we don't want to work with the lower astral. That's where all these negative entities, and there's some kind of entity there. I can't remember what it said it was called, but it basically consumes everything. Like there's nothing of the Christ like in the astral realm. It's definitely like this darker abode, and it's not really where we ultimately want to go. The eighth sphere is something that we want to overcome. Okay, so enough on that. If I think of anything else that pops up, I'll try to jump back to that topic real quick and cover that. I'm sure there's tons of information out there on the eighth sphere, not just, you know, Gigi's videos just were the first ones that I came across. Here's just a quick, this is Wikipedia. A lot of people don't like Wikipedia. This is actually Theosophy Wiki. So Theosophy, the Theosophical Society has like their own Wikipedia thing. The eighth sphere is a locality in which soulless entities are dissolved. So it's basically the things which could not rise above, that which could not ascend, that which didn't have enough energy to make it through to the other realm. It gets absorbed or sucked into this eighth sphere. The eighth sphere numbering inversely, this is from Isis Unveiled, H.P. Blavatsky, is merely a planet like our own attached to the latter and following it in penumbra, a kind of dust hole, a place where all its garbage and filth is consumed. To borrow an expression of the above-mentioned authors of the book Unseen Universe, and on which all the dross and scorification of the cosmic matter pertaining to our planet is in a continual state of remodeling. Alfred Percy Sinnett, in his book Esoteric Buddhism, I did hear about this book, wrote about the eighth sphere. The spheres of the cyclic process of evolution are 7 in number, but there is an 8th in connection with our Earth, because we're familiar with the traditional 7 planets. And 7's a really sacred number too. When I think of the number 8, though, I typically think of infinity. You know, the number 8 is the infinity sign. And I think that 8 in the major arcana of the tarot is strength, I do believe. There is an 8th in connection with our Earth. Our Earth being, it will be remembered, the turning point in the cyclic chain, and this 8th sphere is out of circuit, and born from which it may be truly said no traveler returns. Interesting. Some of you may recognize that phrase. 8th sphere. The 8th sphere is a locality into which irredeemable personalities, that which cannot be redeemed, that which cannot rise above, that which cannot be transmuted, from whom the soul has separated, are eventually drawn to be dissolved. Failures of nature, essentially, that which does not align with Christ consciousness and that which does not align with nature, essentially. Failures of nature to be remodeled entirely, whose divine monad separated itself from the 5 principles during their lifetime, whether in the next preceding or several preceding births, since such cases are also on our records, and who have lived as soulless human beings. These persons whose 6th principle has left them, while the 7th, having lost its vahan or vehicle, can exist independently no longer, their 5th or animal soul, of course, goes down to the bottomless pit. Oh, another thing I'm surprised that she did not mention about this 8th sphere in her videos is that it's got to have some connection with the Klipothic realm. And that's something I would really at some point like to discuss, is get into each sphere of the Klipoth. That's the negative tree of life, the upside down tree of life, which some say the tree of life and the Klipoth are all one tree. So it gets confusing because this 8th sphere or this Klipoth or this abyss, they all kind of seem to be the same thing. And we've talked about the Klipoth here on this channel before. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to get into too much more there. I think that pretty much gives you a basis or understanding, and in context with, other videos that, subjects we've talked about in other videos, all of these things, that should kind of help lead you in the general direction that you want to go if you want to research that. So let's go ahead and get into H.P. Blavatsky's The Land of the Gods. So the story starts out, it tells you that when this was originally published, back in 1887, it was published under the title of An Adventure Among the Rosicrucians. And the copyright name was Franz Hartmann. But they actually tell you that who this person really is of course H.P. Blavatsky. And it's basically her account of traveling to the Himalayas and meeting the Masters of Wisdom in Shambhala, which many of you probably know what Shambhala is. It's kind of like this utopian, perfect place where these masters dwell, and they're watching over humanity, and they could actually be next to you right now, and you wouldn't know, because their powers of perception are so powerful that they're almost like godlike. It's pretty intense. It's pretty interesting. So if you're familiar with the Abbey of Thelema, which is in the Diary of a Drug Fiend, Aleister Crowley, that's kind of a place where initiates go, and they can be undisturbed by the outside world. And Shambhala is kind of like the next level of that. It's really where it's not just human adepts that have gone there. These people are really somewhere between like a god or a demigod and humans. It's kind of the next level. Because not only are these people just magical practitioners, they can manifest things out of thin air because they understand the laws of the universe. And they work in conjunction with these natural laws to be able to produce these seemingly miracles. And that's why it makes a lot of sense about why Jesus was able to perform miracles and stuff. Or, it seemed like miracles, but it was really he just knew how to, work with natural law to bring these things about. We may pick a little bit to read from this. I might pick like some excerpts real quick. But basically the first chapter, it's called The Beauty of the Mountains, and really that chapter to me was kind of boring. It's really just like physical descriptions of the terrain and stuff as she's finding her way to their hidden enclave, this Shambhala. Maybe it's pronounced more Shambhala, because it has an H in it after the B, so Shambhala. But yeah, the first chapter, it's called The Beauty of the Mountains, and it almost reminds me of like when J.R.R. Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings, when I read his stuff, he goes for such a long time into physical descriptions about the landscape, and I'm like, my thoughts are, okay, this is super cool. It's really cool that you want to write in depth about like the physical landscapes and how the scenery looked, because it kind of helps you to create like an image of your mind of the landscape yourself. You want to be able to put yourself in the story. But at the same time, I think it's a little much. It's like, because I'm not really going to remember too many details of like, the moss on the, there's a piece of moss here, or like the way the sunlight reflected on this, certain thing. I think characteristics and descriptions of that nature are cool to an extent, but I think some authors take it a little too far. But I think it's a good test of patience. Like if you can make it through the first chapter, The Beauty of the Mountains, there are some cool analogies she makes in there, or metaphors about, the trees, how some of the trees are top heavy. And this refers to people who have worked too much spiritually. They try to like spiritual bypass. And I'm actually guilty of this myself, where they try to like really get to these higher realms and work with these higher forces and stuff, but they haven't grounded themselves well. So they don't have the strong, firm roots and strong foundation. They're top heavy, so they fall over when a storm comes or something. But those who can stand resilience, it's these enclaves, these places like Shambhala and these retreats are not really for the weak-willed. They're not for people who just want to escape the world. That's not what the spirituality is all about. It's masters who have really faced and crossed the abyss, and now they are in this place where they can do their work away from the rest of the world, not because they're running away from it, but because they want to serve the world. They want to bring their light to the world. and they do so. And it talks about why they don't, interfere with like when really devastating things like wars and stuff happen in the earth. It has to do with like the free will of humanity, and it's actually going against natural law if they interfere and stop some of these things. So it really it starts to describe that as well. So yeah, let me see if I can find another like metaphor that she uses, in the description of the nature and stuff. Here's a little excerpt. Thus, the everlasting combat raging for untold ages still continued, but the front lines of the contending armies changed from year to year, everlasting like the eternal truce. Stand the bare gray rocks upon the summits. Here and there, the vegetation invades their kingdom, so the moss and stuff like covering the rocks, like illusions approaching the realm of the real. Death is victorious. The green spots are buried each year under the descending rocks, but again, life is the victor, for those rocks decay and a new life appears upon their withered faces. So we can learn a lot from watching nature, the things which stand strong and the things which wither away. And then there's even the storms which come and do take away even the stronger aspects of nature. That's just natural law doing its thing. She even has an experience with like fairies and gnomes, and she starts being able to see like these elementals, because gnomes are the elementals for earth, even in ceremonial magic. And then the fae really belong to the realm of Netzach on the Tree of Life. So she comes into this valley. She ends up speaking to this master, and he goes into all these beautiful explanations about how natural law, we have to follow natural law. Let me see if I can find something real quick. He talks about the shortcomings of science and religion, how religion's really just basically worshiping the symbols themselves instead of the actual essence or the force which permeates all nature, which is really what God is. It's the underlying force or the spiritual germ which is behind the essence of all living things. So I have this physical body, but there's a force that exists within me, which is really the true me. It's the underlying cause of all causes. And then those causes have the effects on the material plane. But science only studies the external reality. It does not really study the underlying, really where things, the beginning of manifestation, the underlying cause of things, because they can't measure it. They don't have the spiritual means or the spiritual tools to perceive of such things. And really, this master, he just talks about, being able to go within and really know things through self-experience rather than reading a book or intellectually or by something that, like, I've told you or that a teacher's told you. You're really not going to know, have real knowledge until you've gone within and you've figured things out for yourself through experience. You've actually perceived them, for yourself. And that's how you kind of come to know that these things are true. The books, they only get you so far. Really, even the magic rituals, I think, like the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram and such, they'll only get you so far. Those are exercises to help you get to the point where you can have direct access to the divine source. That which is, behind all reality, that which is the force which acts behind all things. And their order is the Brothers of the Golden and Rosy Cross. And this is not exclusively a Christian group. There's people from all different religions across the world, or spiritual traditions, I should say, because they're not very religious people as far as religious institution goes. Because the religious people, they think that, like, the Pope and, like, all these different emissaries of God, like, they're, like, these kind of middlemen for God or whatever. There's no such thing. Everyone has the ability to have direct access to this force, to the divine power. And that's really what scares the church, because they'll lose all their dogmas and their creeds and all this stuff, have no place. Now, there are jewels within religion which are truth. There's little bits and pieces of truth, and you really have to discern and differentiate what's truth and what's falsehood. He goes on to say, he talks about the difference, isolation, people who are just isolating themselves to run away from the world, and then there's those who have gotten away from here because they know they've gone to places like Shambhala because they know that they will be able to better affect the world that way. Your mind can only develop so far in this mundane, everyday reality or society that we live in. And there's a really beautiful part in this book where it talks about the shortcomings of everyday society. Before his pamphlet, I think they're called, Christian Rosenkreuz. A modern invention, Joanne, Valentine, Andre, that's where like some of the original information of the Rose Cross comes from. Before his pamphlet appeared, the name Rosicrucian didn't mean a person belonging to a certain organized society of that name. It was a generic name given to all occultists, adepts, alchemists, or anybody who was or pretended to have some occult knowledge, and acquainted with the secret signification of the rose and the cross, symbols which have been adopted by the Christian Church, which were, however, not invented by it, but used by all occultists thousands of years before Christianity was known. Same thing with Freemasonry. I'm a Freemason, but those symbols don't belong exclusively to Freemasonry. Freemasonry adopted these ancient symbols, which have been around since the beginning of time. These symbols have power on their own. It's not an organization or anything that like gives them their power. They're just trying to, if the organization's really doing what they're supposed to do, they're just supposed to pass the information along, like the real teachings. And you're not supposed to get so caught up in all the dogmas and all that stuff. The only reason that any rules should be put in place is to help you in your own personal power, so you're not getting sucked away by the distractions of this world, so you stay on your path, and you gain in self-power and self-mastery. And that's where I'm guilty myself, of having been swept away by a lot of the distractions of this world. And she refers to modern science, how it kind of like gropes around for the truth, but it can't really get to the truth behind the real truth, which is behind the essence of all things. It's like trying to know the science of the tree, she says somewhere in here, but really it's just like the bug crawling over the leaf. That's really all science can show you. But the reality of things is so much larger, and it's so much more vast than what we can comprehend with just our 5 physical senses. That's really the shortcomings of philosophies like objectivism, which I used to adhere to when I was younger, in like high school and stuff. Before I knew that there was the capability of you being able to evolve your senses to perceive beyond the physical. I didn't know about these things before. Nobody had ever taught me. I'd been to church, but nobody explains these things. They just tell you, oh, love Jesus, love everybody. And they don't go into it any further than that. They don't give you the real, knowledge that you're desiring, so that you can understand these things. Like, why do people believe this? Where did this come from? And not just blindly and accept things. She talks about how all books actually exist in the astral light. And there's all kinds of things. They create gardens from the energy. They do it to appeal to Madame Blavatsky as she's visiting there. So it looks beautiful there, but none of it's actually, quote, real. The adepts create the illusion. They're even able to walk like through paintings and stuff like that. And notice too, I have not made it all the way through this book. If you can see the little paper mark, I'm only about, I'd say I'm almost about halfway through the book, maybe like a good 45% of the way through the book, if I had to guess. So it's not a really big book, but it is profound. It is very profound. It's beautiful. Beautiful information in this. I love it. I'm just trying to find some sections real quick that I can read. And then I'll probably go ahead and end this video after that. Because we're getting on to what? We're 40 minutes in. It's not super long, but let's see. Yeah, it talks about, they talk a lot about how resistance is actually an opportunity for growth. It's like those trees, you know, if you're top heavy and you can't stand the resistance that is given to you, then you don't have the power that's really needed. The spiritual power to overcome obstacles is really important. It gives you character, and that's really where the true light comes through, is when you've really I just saw something about that. Those who desire to develop strength mustn't be afraid of resistance. They must obtain strength in their feet. They must be prepared to meet the wind of contrary opinions and not be overthrown when the storms of passion arise. They should force themselves to remain in contact with that which is not according to their taste, and even to harmonize with that which appears inimical, for it is really their friend because it can supply them with strength. This is probably something I need to learn. That's what I thought when I read it. They should learn to bear calumny and animosity, envy and opposition, endure suffering and estimate life at its true value. The contrary influences they have been exposed to may cause a tempest to rage through their hearts, but when they have gained the power to command the tempest to cease, basically to control their passions, and to say to the excited waves of their emotions, "Be still," then the first gleam of the rising sun will appear in their hearts, and before its warm glow, the cold moonlight thrown out by the calculating and reflecting brain will Reflecting brain will grow pale. A new and still larger world than the external one will appear before their interior vision, where they'll be contented to live and find an inexhaustible source of happiness, unknown to those who live a life of the senses. I've been in that space before, you know. It's probably not on the level that these adepts or any of these masters have seen, but I have seen glimpses of those higher realms, and it's beautiful, it's blissful. There's no pain there. There's no taking your ego there. There's no, if you're holding on to stuff, which, you know, I'm kind of guilty of that myself, it really keeps you down from being able to access those higher realms. It starts to become a problem. It's like a chain that ties you to this mortal realm. So what the disciple ought to seek is to strengthen their character, and that constitutes real individuality. I'm trying to find the one section that I read the other day to my fiance because it really spoke to me. Sorry, this is taking me so long to find this page. I know it's gotta be somewhere in this section. I really do apologize. I'm not sure why. I want to make sure I find the right page. Maybe it's a little bit further than I thought it was. And I even took a picture of this this page and sent it. I wish I could exit out of this video, but I can't. To see that picture, and then I would be able to let you know, or I would be able to see what the page number was. So I really apologize for this. If you want to go ahead and end the video, you can, but I think it's worth it to hear this one part if I can but find it. Wow, usually I do not have this much trouble finding what I'm looking for. It's like a couple key words I'm looking for and I'm not seeing it. So yeah, I'd rather not end this video. You can go ahead and maybe like skip to the end of the video, and I'm gonna keep trying to find this. But I'm not gonna do it for too much longer. I'll just try to like summarize maybe. Oh, this is kind of bothering me now. Alright, I don't know that this was really the page that I was looking for, but for time's sake, I am just going to go ahead and read this page. Master, I said, would it not be well for those who desire to develop spiritually and to become adepts to imitate your example, and to select some secluded place where they could reside undisturbed and give their time to meditation and concentration of thought? There are a great many people in various parts of the world, belonging to various nationalities and creeds, who have become convinced that the conditions under which the majority of our present civilization live are not conducive to the quick attainment of a higher spiritual state. So this is one of the sections I did want to find. They believe the objects which they usually strive to attain during their comparatively short lives upon this globe, such as the gratification of pride and ambition, the hoarding of money, the enjoyment of sexual love, the obtaining of bodily comfort and pleasures, etc., cannot be the true objects of life, but that our present life is only one of the many phases of our eternal existence, and that terrestrial life is only a means to an end, namely, to afford the conditions by which the divine element, germinally, talking about the divine germ, she often refers to, by which the divine element germinally contained in everyone may grow and develop, whereby we may attain a higher life like yours, which isn't subject to transformation and death, and is therefore of permanent value. The adept, who had patiently listened to my outburst, smiled and said, "If those people have advanced so far as to be able to bear a life of seclusion, let them enter it. But to do so, it is above all necessary that they possess some real knowledge. Only those who possess such real knowledge will be able to live harmoniously together. As long as humanity moves merely on the plane of beliefs and opinion, each person's opinions and tastes will differ from those of the others to a certain extent. And I am afraid that your proposed harmonious society would prove in the end to be a very inharmonious one, and not at all conducive to that tranquility necessary for interior concentration. I have, however, no doubt that even under such unfavorable auspices, that considerable advantage might be derived from the establishment of theosophical monasteries in secluded places. If you had any colleges, seminaries, schools, or societies where the truth could be taught without all the accompanying rubbish of scientific and theological misconceptions and superstitions, which have accumulated through the ages, great progress would undoubtedly be made. As the present civilization now stands, there are two education methods. One utilizes what is called science, the other what is called religion. And that's all I'm going to read on that. There's another section I wanted to read too, which kind of just like talks about like the superfluousness and the kind of just the mundaneness of everyday societal physical life, and how really it's all just distraction, you know, and that the things that most humans chase, that the things that people chase in society have nothing to do with absolute truth, you know, this divine essence, this force which governs and works behind. It's the energy which, you know, is behind all creation. But I hope that gives you some explanation there. And I'm all about the reinstallation of the mystery schools on the earth, because I think that some mystery schools would be the closest thing to these, you know, theosophical monasteries that they are talking about. That's more where like ascended masters and real gurus and masters go to do real work, to kind of watch over and guide humanity. But I think even the everyday people need some kind of mystery school where they can start. Those who are ready, those who are actually interested in learning about this stuff, can go to, so that they're not caught up in the mundane everyday life, and they're not being pulled this way and that way and this way and that way by the dumb distractions of everyday life. You know, they're allowed to go there and be in seclusion and be scholarly and work on, you know, building up their divine nature and becoming more powerful in that regards. Power in, you know, the sense that they can change the world in a positive way. So this video did end up being pretty long, 53 minutes. Sorry for the long moment of silence as I was trying to find one of the excerpts I was looking for. So I am going to go ahead and end this video for now. I want to thank everybody that's subscribed to this YouTube channel, that has watched these videos, you've stuck with me now for quite a while, because I think we're at like 535 subscribers or something, somewhere around there. So we're growing. We're growing in number. Just trying to spread the knowledge, spread the light, you know, so that it can be, you know, passed on and shared to others, you know, pass the torch on. Close to 21,000 views as a whole on the channel as a whole. So I thank each and every one of you very deeply and very humbly and very respectfully for being a part of this channel and watching and just being part of the Spirit family, you know, Family Spirit. We used to have a band that was called Family Spirit back in the day. So yeah, that's I guess that's all for now. I started this channel back in January of 2021, I believe. So now it's 2020. It's January 2023. This channel is 2 years old. And I hope that it continues to grow, and that it, you know, exponentially, you know, reaches people out there, so that they can find this information and they can start working on their own temple, working on themselves, and bettering the world that way. And we shall manifest heaven on earth. So mote it be. So thank you very much. Peace and blessings, everyone. Take care. Be safe. Have fun. But take care and be safe, as always. Peace and blessings.